Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, one and all. See why I like to talk first. Coming after these firebrands, don't be easy, you know. I wasn't aware that you were allowed to bring the fanfare on the stage, so that's why I just came up alone, but I will not be walking on any platform alone again. But I didn't know. This school hall is really quite familiar to me because every year almost I come here to address the graduation of the Eden Lodge Primary School. And so therefore, speaking here this evening really is not at all new for me. But I have to say that as we are in school, I just want to say a little bit about education because you have to agree that the atmosphere in schools now is changing considerably. Almost every day, some children from one school involved with something with students from the same school or students from another school. Sometimes violence taking place in the school itself, to the point where now our schools are actually being classified as unsafe places. Can you imagine that we have lived to see the day when schools are being referred to as unsafe? In our day, that was unheard of. But the question that has to be asked as all this is happening is, where is the leadership in all this? Where is the leadership? Yes, parents are not blameless. Schools are not blameless. The children themselves are not blameless. But where is the leadership of this country in all this? How does it help for a Minister of Education to be constantly at war with teachers at schools and saying all manner of things about teachers in school? Anybody at all, no matter how dumb, but know that when you use that approach, you are demoralizing teachers who are the ones that have to supervise and guide children for a large part of every day. How does it help when a Minister of Education can use the word demon in any context at all when referring to a school child? Doesn't he know that that is going to affect the self-esteem of the child? How does it help when school children look around and see so many people in this country struggling every day, trying to make ends meet and trying to stay alive and survive as a result of decisions made by this government? And especially when the people see that they see struggling to survive are their own parents. Some of these children, when they see these things, they themselves start to lose hope. They see no light at all at the end of the tunnel. And then wrongly, and perhaps even inexcusably, they then engage in some disorderly conduct. But lack of proper leadership is a very, very serious thing, and is now affecting this country big time. The only people refusing to accept that there's a lack of proper leadership in Barbados right now is the Democratic Labour Party itself. The entire country is falling to pieces under the Democratic Labour Party, and they are not doing anything at all about it. They don't even seem to care. And worse, they are not even prepared to let the people decide if they want to have somebody else to try to fix the problems that are facing this country. But you know, 5 years have passed since they were last elected to govern this country. 5 years. Don't matter how they do their maths, 5 years passed on the 20th of February since they were elected to govern this country. 2 Mondays from today will make it 5 years after the first sitting of Parliament since they were last elected. But they went to Parliament 2 weeks ago to pass estimates for the next financial year, which begins 5 years from when they were elected, however you look at it. If you use the 20th of February, or if you use the 5th of March, the next financial year begins more than 5 years after they were elected. And this is a very, y'all might be trivializing what is happening in this country, you know, with the calling of this election, but this is a very, very serious thing. And it is a very, very serious challenge to to the democracy in this country. And Barbadians do not, cannot, and should not like what is happening right now. Only Friday night, when I was driving out of my constituency in the rain, a man was actually waiting on me and came out in the rain to talk to me in the rain, to tell me how disgusted he was. And this is a man who's a supporter of the Democratic Labour Party, or in fact was a supporter of the Democratic Labour Party. And he could not for the life of him understand how a government could be holding off on calling elections when 5 years had passed. He was very, very disgusted. In fact, he used language that I cannot really repeat. And he was saying things like, from the store flying over the so-and-so place, while serious issues affecting this so-and-so country. And he is neither trying to fix them nor call the so-and-so elections so that somebody else could so-and-so well fix them. That's a fact. So this is a serious thing. I have been in Parliament now for 5 terms, 23 years. And this is the first time that I have ever seen 6 estimates presented over a 5-year period. First time. And it's not only unprecedented, but it's wrong. Because it means that the government is seeking to take control over a financial year which begins on April 1st, 2018, and ends on March 31st, 2019, even though they may not get a mandate to govern for that period. So they cannot assume that they are going to form the next government. In fact, we know that they will not be forming the next government. So it is insulting to be treating the people of Barbados in this way. But they will say, and I have to concede it's true, that the Constitution permits them to do that. So they are operating according to the letter of the law, but not the spirit of the law. But even so, they can say it is constitutional. So let me move to my next point about this and this delay. Because after the 5th of March next month, when Parliament dissolves, every single minister is going to continue to function as a minister with full power and authority as a minister, as though nothing at all has changed. That's a fact. Now, there are 3 arms of the state. There's the executive, which is the cabinet. There's the legislature, which is Parliament, and there's the judiciary. The judiciary is not really relevant for the point I am making this evening. But Parliament, the legislature, not only passes laws, but it functions in such a way as to serve as a check and balance on the actions of the executive, meaning Parliament is supposed to serve as a check and balance on how ministers behave and what they do. But after the 5th of March, Parliament ceases to play any role at all or to have any power at all because it ceases to exist for all practical purposes. Now, my concern is that after the 5th of March, the Minister of Finance can exercise very, very vast powers. And I want to refer you particularly to Section 3 of the Duties, Taxes, and Other Payments Exemption Act, Chapter 67B of the Laws of Barbados. And Section 3 of that act says, notwithstanding anything contained in any enactment, so nothing can stop him at all, the Minister of Finance may, by order, grant to any person, business, or undertaking exemption from the payment of any duty, tax, or other money. So the Minister of Finance can, by order, exempt anybody at all or any company that he feels like from any payment at all. Any payment at all. Now, Section 4 says that any such order he makes is subject to negative resolution. That's just fancy talk for saying that. It is to be laid in Parliament, to give Parliament and members of Parliament a chance to look at it, debate it, and if they decide, they can actually veto it, prevent it from taking effect. But the problem is that Parliament is not going to be able to do that after the 1st of March because Parliament will not be meeting again until after the next elections are held. So what can happen is that the Minister of Finance, after the 5th of March, can receive an application from anybody, friend or foe. Say somebody decides, I'm bringing the car, you can write the Minister of Finance and say, I want you to exempt me from paying any duty at all on this car. Somebody who was arrears for NIS, somebody who was arrears owes income taxes, land taxes, they can write to the Minister of Finance after the 5th of March and say, listen, I want you to waive me paying any of this money at all. And the Minister of Finance can, and he must confess, he can do it perfectly legally. Perfectly legally. He can waive it. And Barbadians and parliamentarians would not even know that it's happening. And even if we know that it's happening, we will be powerless to do anything because there will be no parliament at all to decide that we want to discuss and debate this order that exempted this individual, friend or foe of the Minister of Finance, from paying these taxes and duties that he would otherwise have had to pay. That is an awesome power to have for an unknown period of time between March 5th and whenever elections are called. And if this Minister of Finance could have been as bold as to bring to Parliament the order that he made exempting sandals from paying what was around about $500 million in taxes and duties for, in effect, 40 years. Even when he had to bring the order to Parliament and was able to bring it to Parliament, and when he did bring it to Parliament, imagine when now it would not be possible for him to bring it to Parliament. Imagine what could happen. So those of you who feel comfortable with that situation can feel comfortable. I do not feel comfortable with that. So unless the bringing of these estimates some 2 weeks ago was part of some red herring to try to make us strategize wrongly, then this is a very, very serious thing. And of course, the major question you have to ask is really, why is it that this government really wants to hold on to power for so long? Why is it? It's not as if people are really benefiting from this government being in power. Who is really benefiting from this government? Who has benefited over the last 10 years from this government being in power? We know a few people. You know Sandals, you heard the name, Maloney and others. They have benefited, a select few, whether it be at the Port Authority, wherever it is you look, you see certain names and certain names only. But the country as a whole has not benefited. The country as a whole has not benefited, meaning the economy. You heard from the economist, Anthony Wood, who's more competent than I am in these matters. 23 downgrades over the last 10 years, including 2 since the Minister of Finance passed his last budget, which he said was going to bring rewards for all of us. Yet still, the economy received 2 downgrades. The fiscal accounts are nowhere near balanced, and even the slight alleged decline in the deficit has been questioned by a number of reputable economists. Our debt is still high and rising. Our reserves seem to be in a sieve and just draining out all the time, even at a time when we are in the heart of our tourist season, the middle of the tourist season, and our foreign reserves are declining. That is something that only Richard Seeley could get done. And he's the only minister who, over 10 years, managed to get, he says, more tourists to come to Barbados, but earn less revenue from the more tourists that came 10 years earlier. Only Richard Seeley could get them done. So Sandals has benefited from these concessions. You and I have to pay every cent of our income taxes, VAT, any duties that we have to pay pursuant to anything we buy or anything, but Sanders does not pay this government one single cent, not one. Hotel workers who are on 2- and 3-day weeks, for the most part, they have not benefited under this government. People generally out of work and looking for work and trying to find jobs, earnestly trying to find jobs, they are not finding any, so they have not benefited. The poor people in this country are just getting poorer and poorer under this government. The people who have to walk through sewage every day, have to inhale it every day, and get splashed with it every day, they have not benefited from the work of this government. The middle class in this country have taken the biggest hit, I must tell you. They have had their allowances taxed, paying increased income taxes, indirect taxes, and SRL, a whole host of things that they could have claimed when they were filing their income tax returns to reduce the amount of taxes they paid. They have lost the right to claim practically all of those. So middle class people know, and in fact all of us, are living from paycheck to break to paycheck. And now working class have become, the middle class have become, in many cases now, the working poor. So they themselves have not benefited either. So how can you really ask somebody to re-elect you when nobody except a privileged few in this country have benefited? I say that this country needs to be purged of this government. We need a purge from this government. And this is where the Barbados Labour Party comes into the picture. And especially Cynthia Ford and people like Cynthia Ford. And I must tell you that I feel really honored today to be here on her platform. Her loyalty to the Barbados Labour Party, first of all, is unquestionable. And I'm going to say a little bit about that in a minute and a half. Cynthia Ford is also an extremely hard worker who does not ever seem to get tired. And party leader, Mia Motley, can tell you that she was a tower of strength with her, as Anthony Wood has told you, she was a tower of strength with him when she served in the Ministry of Education with both Mia Motley and Anthony Wood. She is no stranger to hard work, and this country needs hard workers right now. But what I think for me stands out most about Cynthia Ford is her ability to just tune in and connect with the issues that affect ordinary working class people. That's a fact. And the communities that they live in. It's as if she knows everything that is happening, and she's not any onlooker or somebody who stands up and watches what is going on. She rolls up her sleeves and she gets involved, and she uses the hands-on approach in relation to people not only in her constituency, but across Barbados as a whole. We are in a deep hole, and people who have the ability to work hard are what we need right now, and Cynthia Ford is one such person. I told you about her loyalty before, and I said I was going to get back to it in a second. They rushed me off, but just let me give this one example. I remember when I was perhaps in my early 20s or so, and I was told to speak on a national platform. Cynthia Ford was standing in front. I was very, very nervous, I must tell you. And that's why I told her in the end to try to beg off, but it didn't work. But I was going very, very good, I felt. And I made one simple half-sentence remark. At the time, this was now Sir Henry Ford, but Henry Ford at the time was leader. And I just said I was commending Mr. Ford to the listener and saying how much I support him, but I missed and said that I may have had my doubts before, but certainly now I have no doubt whatsoever about his ability to lead this country. And when I came down off the platform and I was walking away, I felt my hand get grabbed. And it was Cynthia Ford. You said what? That you had doubts? You had doubts about? You kind of doubts about Henry Ford. Man, Henry Ford could always lead this country. And she roughed me up for about 15 minutes. And I had to tell her that I didn't realize I had said it, which I did. And she then, after begging and pleading, and I had to tell her the lie that I was a bit nervous, she then let me off the hook. But her loyalty is unquestionable to the Barbados Labour Party. And just to conclude by taking it one paragraph, Mr. Chairman, to the next level, the level of leadership of this country. The person without question or challenge is Mayor Amor Martin. And I am not telling you that just because she's a woman. I can't tell you that. I have 3 women running against me, and all 3 of them combined don't deserve to get even 1 single vote. So I am endorsing Mayor and commending her to you because she is the right person for this job at this time. She has the track record, she has the experience, the composure, the ability, and she commands respect both locally and internationally, and all that is necessary she has for the position of leadership. She is my leader, she is the party leader, and she will be the next immediate leader of this country. Thank you.